Look at this approach. It looks wrong, doesn't it? A huge commercial jet hovering just above the tarmac, but flying almost completely sideways. Your brain immediately tells you something is wrong, as if the plane is skidding out of control. But this moment is entirely rooted in aerodynamic physics. What you're actually watching is an invisible tug of war. Every second a plane is in the sky, it is locked in a physical struggle between the mass of the aircraft and the continuous push of moving air. This alarming angle is a deliberate tactic. The plane is actively using the natural laws of physics to keep itself safely airborne in a strong crosswind. To understand how this works, we need to leave the runway for a moment and look at something much simpler, a classic weather vane on a barn roof. The mechanical design of a weather vane is clever. When the wind hits it, the air pushes against that large flat surface area at the back. That push automatically forces the smaller, pointed nose to swing around and face directly into the oncoming wind. An airplane is built using this exact same physical principle. Think of the giant vertical fin at the very back of the jet as the weather vane's flat tail. Engineers call this natural aerodynamic self-correction static directional stability. Static directional stability is the inherent tendency of an aircraft to naturally align itself with the oncoming airflow without any steering input from the pilot. Because of this stability, a plane will always naturally seek the path of least resistance through the air, and sometimes that means the nose of the plane has to point directly into the wind, even if that means looking away from its actual destination on the ground. But here is where we run into a problem. What happens when the wind is pushing hard to the east, but the runway you need to land on is to the north? If the plane only ever acted like a passive weather vane, the pilot wouldn't be able to steer. There has to be a mechanical way to override that natural instinct and fight the wind. To do that, we look at the back edge of that giant tail fin. This moving piece is called the rudder. Moving this flap gives the pilot directional control. Directional control is the ability to artificially alter the tail's aerodynamics. By deflecting the rudder, the pilot generates a new pushing force that bosses the wind around and forces the nose to turn. So, while stability keeps the plane flying straight and safe, directional control via the rudder is the tool that makes the aircraft an actively steered system rather than a passive leaf blowing in the wind. Designing this system is a high-stakes balancing act. You can't just slap a rudder of any size onto the back of a plane. It must follow strict mathematical parameters. Let's look at the first rule. What happens if the rudder is engineered to be too small or too weak to fight the wind? Engineers design the rudder to handle the extreme case of an engine failure. If a twin-engine plane loses power on one side, the remaining engine creates asymmetrical thrust, forcing the aircraft into a violent spin. A rudder has to be large enough and powerful enough to counteract that massive twisting force and keep the plane flying straight, even with only half its engines working. But on the flip side, what if you overcompensate and make the rudder absolutely enormous? An oversized rudder becomes dangerously sensitive. The tiniest tap on the pedals from the pilot would translate into violent aerodynamic whiplash. This would cause extreme nausea for the passengers, and the sheer stress could literally rip the entire tail assembly off the aircraft in midair. Therefore, directional control is a high-altitude arm wrestling match. Engineers must design a system that holds the perfect balance, possessing sheer, overpowering physical force to save the plane in an emergency, while maintaining microscopic aerodynamic precision for a smooth ride. Armed with this understanding, let's go back and look at that terrifying sideways landing from the very beginning. During the approach, a crosswind strikes the plane. Thanks to directional stability, the tail acts like a weather vane, twisting the nose into the wind. Through the air, it flies straight, but relative to the runway, it drifts diagonally forward. This works perfectly in the air, but creates a massive problem for the landing gear. Mere seconds before the tires touch down, those wheels must be perfectly parallel with the tarmac, or the landing gear will snap. Just before the wheels hit the ground, the pilot steps hard on the rudder pedals. The rudder deflects sharply. This engineered force overpowers the weather vane instinct, kicking the tail against the crosswind and snapping the nose down the centerline. That sideways maneuver is a precise exploitation of natural wind stability. By riding the crosswind right until touchdown and then kicking the nose straight, the pilot turns a chaotic atmosphere into a stable landing. This intense maneuver is just a highly visible example of something that happens on every single flight around the world. Our atmosphere is a turbulent, constantly shifting ocean of fluid. Moving in a straight line through that chaos is never an accident or a default state of nature. Every time you arrive safely at a gate, you've just experienced an intricate, continuous dance, a partnership between a machine built to find its own natural path through the sky and a pilot who always holds the reins.